Hi, once again. Yes. Right, so I'm Mr. Chu here. Right, once again, welcome to part three of this workshop. Right, so I believe many of you will have joined the first two parts. Okay, so today we'll finish covering all the rest. That includes the control setup and some of the answer templates for some of the topics. Okay, some of the standard answers that are present in some of the common topics. Okay. Now, in case you do not have the materials, right, you have not downloaded that material, right, the link has already been pasted in the chat. So do click on that and download it, and you have the soft copy. Otherwise, for the rest, you can take it out now. I'll wait for more people to join us. Today's session ends at 9:30. Okay, we try to end on time. Hi, Tiffany. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and while you all take out your worksheet. Hi, evening. No, I did not eat McDonald's again. You still remember that? Yes. Yeah. But I ate McDonald's yesterday. So today cannot eat. Okay. Yes, today is the last part of this workshop. Okay, thanks for joining me for the last two already. And today will be the third one. And subsequently, we have the Power Up Bootcamp. Okay, in case you have not heard about it. All right, the Power Up Bootcamp and the Power Bootcamp are all held in June. Okay, so do look out for that. Okay, buy McDonald's for dinner. Great. Yeah, this is the last class for this workshop. We'll finish up with what you see on the screen here, control setup, and some of the topics here. Okay? Yes. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm really glad that I can help all of you. All these are very important, be it skills, techniques, or concepts. Okay, so do listen carefully, practice all these techniques, okay, and use them. Not just practice and don't use, right, of course. So you must practice, and when it comes up for your exam, please use them. Okay, they are definitely helpful, right? All the experiment-based questions, fair test, aim, relationship, all this. Okay, today we'll cover control setup and some of the topics. Okay, so I will not wait any longer because we have quite a bit to cover. So let's get started. Okay, right. So what I have here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. The first part, control setup. Okay, so you have learned quite a number of answer templates, especially for like fair test, relationship, aim. Okay, so this is kind of the last one already for the experiment-based questions. Right, so what is a control setup? Now, a control setup is when you don't test anything in that setup. It has a different purpose. Okay, but it is of course still used in your experiment. Okay, so its purpose is to confirm that the result that you get are only caused by the variable that you change. Let's just look at these two setups for example. Setup A is just water and then all these apparatus. Setup B, I have the water plant. So the main difference is the presence of the water plant. Okay, and of course the rest of the variables should be kept constant for a fair test. All right, so we place all these under the light, and what happens is now there should be gas collected in the setup B. Gas collected will be collected here. But why would there be gas collected? It must be because of photosynthesis. Okay, so photosynthesis produce a gas, oxygen, right? So oxygen will go up to the top. But in setup A, there's no plant. So we will not expect anything to be here. There's nothing in the inverted test tube. Alright, so if we can collect a gas in setup B but none in setup A, and that shows you that okay, that confirms and make sure that the production of this gas or the collection of that must be caused by the water plant and nothing else, no other variables. Because the only difference between these two setup is the water plant. Okay? So that is the purpose of the control setup. It's meant not to test the variable, while the experimental setup, okay, the one that is set up here, this is the experimental setup. So one is control setup, one is experimental setup. Okay? So the experimental setup is the one with the change variable. So in this case, the change variable is either present or absent. Okay? So you should use this template, right? If they already told you it's the control setup, then they ask you what is the purpose of the control setup. Then your answer just start from here. But you may have to tweak the phrasing a little bit here and there, depends on how the question is asked. Okay, so to confirm that any changes to the measured variable, so that depends on what is being measured. So like in this case, right, the production of the gas. Okay, so the template is just a standard template, any changes to the measured variable. So you can change this accordingly to what is needed. Okay, which is the production of the gas X or the collection of gas X, etc. Okay, then you can phrase it as is only caused by or affected by, depending on the variables. Okay, and what you have changed? The presence of the plants. Okay, the water plants. So this template, again, all these templates are generic templates. So you have to adjust accordingly to your experimental setup. Okay, but most of our time you can roughly follow these templates. Okay. Right. Any question? Okay, let me check. Okay. Okay, again, for those who cannot find the worksheet, the link is in the chat. Okay, so do look at that if you need. Alicia, you are new. Okay. Our previous two sessions are all on YouTube, so you can search My Stretcher and look for our videos there. Okay. No, we are not going to learn MCQ based question in this workshop, Charlotte. This workshop is for structured questions. Okay, that means your open-ended questions. Okay, and some of you having a weighted assessment in the early of May. Yes, so that's very soon. So all this go and practice. What's the purpose of control setup? Yeah, there is already written. Use this template. You start off from to confirm, etc., etc. Okay, follow the templates. Okay. Do I teach in my structure? I teach at Clementi on Saturday, P6. Yes. Okay, so I've answered I think most of the question. Okay, some of you say is to compare. Yes, it's actually to compare the results, then from there you confirm. Okay, so if you want to make it more complete, you can say to compare results and to confirm. But I don't find that really necessary. So I leave it to you. But my template here, to confirm that any changes, I think that is sufficient to explain the purpose of a control setup. Okay, so yes. Yeah, so definitely there's a comparison. Well, that's why we have two setup, right? We are comparing, okay, now I have these two setup. I compare their results. One have a gas produced, one does not have a gas produced. So I compare the results, then I confirm that the gas produced must be due to the water plants and not other variables. Okay, so definitely there's some comparison involved. Okay, let's move on. So let's try this question. No, I'm not teaching P5 this year. Okay, mainly focus on P6. Okay, now look at this question. I have a container that contains some germinating seeds. Okay, now Mohan soaked some bean seeds. Basically, bean seeds are just seeds. Okay, different types of seeds. So they place in the cell option below with a thermometer inside. So of course, the thermometer is to show that if germination produce heat. Okay, but before we even talk about that, Give a reason why Mohan did not fill the bottle completely with bean seeds. Now, this is not an easy question. Okay, this is not an easy question. You have to think about germination. Okay, so let me see some answers if you have tried. Prevent overcrowding. No, what? You see the space is right below it, and the bean seeds are stuck. So you can say they are actually overcrowded, but the airspace is below. Hmm. Okay, AJ, you use this method, but your teacher marked you wrong. It could be your variables not stated correctly. That one you have to double check on that. Okay, I see one correct answers. One correct answer. Need oxygen to germinate. Yes, this is an airspace that contains air. Air. What is needed for germination? Germination needs WOW. Wow. Okay, what is WOW? Okay, let me write it in the other way. It's easier to see like that. WOW, you need water, you need oxygen, or you can call it air. You need warm, or you can say it's suitable temperature. Okay, so these are the conditions needed for germination. So yes, it is very overcrowded in the container. But in order to still let them germinate, they still must have the basic requirement for germination. Okay, so there is water because he soaked the bean seeds already, so they are wet. Okay. They did not say that this is placed in the fridge or anything, so we can assume that they have warm. Okay, so this air space is to provide them with the air because they are overcrowded, so there's actually limited air inside. So some air space allow them to kind of breathe. Okay. Okay, right. So this first part here is about the condition to germinate. Okay, so you must have the presence of oxygen. Okay, so the airspace there is to allow the presence of oxygen so that the seeds can germinate. Okay, so you can check your answer. Will I be the teacher teaching in the holiday boot camp? Yes, I'll be one of the teacher. My class is in Clementi Mall, not Clementi Mall. My structure is in Grandeur Mall, the mall beside Clementi Mall. Wire gauze is like wire mesh. You know what is wire mesh? It's similar. Basically, wire gauze is just like wire mesh. Okay, they are similar. You know, you go barbecue, right? If you have been to a barbecue before, and then there's a wire mesh. Yeah, it's almost the same thing. Okay? All right. Okay, it's next. Suggest a control setup for Mohan's experiment. Okay, now in order to suggest the control setup correctly, let's look at the aim. What does he want to find out? Use a red pen. To find out if germinating seeds produce heat. Okay, this is the aim. So remember for control setup, what is the use of control setup? It's a setup where no variables are tested. Okay? And the measured variable is higher temperature basically. Okay, we're measuring the temperature and see whether it produces heat. So if I do not want to test any variable, what is my change variable here? It must be the presence of germinating seeds. So what can I do? Okay, so this is the change variable. I put as CV, change variable, and heat is basically measuring the temperature. Okay, so thermometer will measure the temperature, so that is the measured variable. So how do I not test the change variable? Okay, good. Okay. A setup where there is no germinating seeds, you mean. Okay. So you want a setup where there is no seeds. Yes. Place the same setup and the seeds are not soaked. Okay. Correct. Chloe as well. That's fine. Okay. So I'm looking at some of your answers. Some of you say a setup where there are no germination seeds. So you have to be very careful. Don't just say a setup. You must prepare a setup that is similar to what is here. Basically, everything else must be there. So you must say it's similar to this current setup. Don't just say a setup. What does a setup means? I can do any setup. Right? It has to be similar to this, but you don't put the bean seeds or the seeds. That is one possible answer. Okay, one of you mentioned, okay, don't soak the seeds. Basically, you remove the condition for germination. We need water, right? So you don't soak the seeds, then the seeds cannot germinate. So there is no germinating seeds, but there are seeds. That's fine. The seeds will not germinate. Okay? Removing the air, not likely possible unless you create a vacuum. Okay? Or you could consider putting in the fridge. Okay. But what is easiest is don't put any seeds. That will be the easiest. Don't put any seeds. Okay? So this is what you can put as your answer. A similar setup. Okay? Say a similar setup instead of just saying a setup. A setup can be any setup with no bean seeds or just seeds. Okay? Maybe you don't need the word bean. It's okay. A similar setup with no seeds. This is one of the possible answer. Okay? Another possible answer, you could put it like this. So one of you said, don't soak the seeds, okay? Or you put seeds that are dry, okay? Using dry seeds is easier than saying that don't soak them. Okay, so yes. Now you can dry them. I mean, you can keep them dry, not soaking them, or you can boil the seeds. Boil the seeds means that you kill them in a way, okay? And therefore, no germinating seeds. Okay, so as long as you remove the condition for germination, be it killing them or prevent them from germinating, okay, then that's fine. I think identical is fine. Okay, identical is fine in this case. Okay, just like I write similar because they are not exactly identical since I'm not putting the seeds. But I think it is fine in this case because in a way it's just the difference in seed and I've already mentioned that there are no seeds. Okay, so if you put identical, I think it's acceptable. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. Here, let me check. Cook the seeds. Okay, don't just say cook the seed, right? So you have to tell me, okay, cook the seed is just like boiling the seeds. But you must tell me that you are using a similar setup using cooked seeds. Then that will be fine. So you have to phrase your answer correctly, yeah? Phrase your answer correctly. You must mention that you are using that same setup, identical, similar setup, or same setup, but no seeds or cooked or boiled seeds. Okay? Is the gauze still needed? Since we already mentioned that it's the same setup or similar setup, then we are assuming all the rest are there, except that the seeds are different, be it no seeds or boiled seeds or dry seeds. Okay? So we're assuming all the rest of the things are there, including the cap, the thermometer are all there. We are not changing them. They should all be there. Okay? Yeah. So if possible, you can use a vacuum. A vacuum means there's no air, but I don't think uh most of you will understand what's a vacuum. But a vacuum is a space with no air. So yeah. How's my handwriting so good on drawing on the laptop? No, I'm using a writing pad. It's just like writing on a tablet, but I'm writing on a writing pad. Okay. I answer the important question only. Write down everything in the control setup. Write down everything in the control setup. Okay, your science teacher tell you to do that. Um, yeah, you can follow the teacher, but I would say it's not necessary because if let's say they give a very complicated setup, how are you going to clearly state all the things are there? Like for example, how would I describe this? I will use a setup that contains the thermometer, the cap, the wire gauze. It's hard to describe. So the easier way and still correct is to just say use identical or similar setup, but just tell me what you have changed. Okay? So I think that is sufficient. What's the wire gauze? So that's what I mentioned. Wire gauze is just like a wire mesh. Like for example, you go barbecue, you use a wire mesh. AJ, let me see. What's your question, AJ? I'm scrolling. Okay, I'm in the control setup when I wrote the sentence, it marked me wrong and said I did not write comparison. Okay, AJ. So you're talking about the comparison in the template, right? Okay, so you follow what your teacher has advised. Okay, if you need to say to compare, okay, then write that if that is safer. Okay, so this student is saying that for the template here, you should write to compare and confirm. Am I correct, AJ? Because some school teacher say that no, you should say to compare the results. Okay, but I don't think that is necessary. All right, so you can follow your school's advice. Okay, let's do that, AJ. All right, so I'm gonna move on. Question 11. Okay, what we have here, banana. Now, banana, they are, before they are ripe, they are green, right? Okay, and eventually they turn yellow. Okay, but if they're on the tree, you realize these bananas, they grow upwards, they curve upwards. So, suggest a reason why they curve upwards as they grow. So, actually, some hints are in the question. Now, of course, you may not exactly know, the scientific reason why they are growing upwards or why they are shaped in this way. But since it's a suggest question, they actually give you some hints. Okay, remember when you all try to answer these questions, you must analyze the whole question. Okay, so the hint is that, okay, they are green and they contain chlorophyll. This is a very important hint. What chlorophyll for? Okay, so chlorophyll is meant to absorb or trap light. Okay, so why would the bananas contain chlorophyll? We do not know. Okay, but you must know that mainly for plants, the leaves are the one that mainly make food for the plants. But it's not only limited to the leaves. You see, they are called green plants for a reason. Some other parts of the plant can also photosynthesize and make food, but they are not the main factory for the food. Okay, so it's still the leaves. Some other parts like this banana, okay, they also help to create some food. Okay, make food. Okay, so it has to be related to photosynthesis since they mentioned chlorophyll. So, so you must mention chlorophyll, but why do they grow upwards? Okay, so you must address this. Why do they grow upward or curve upwards? Curve upwards is just like why plants will grow higher and higher, right? They want to trap more light, okay, or obtain more sunlight for photosynthesis. Okay. Trap as much sunlight as possible for what, Stephanie? So you have to add on, yeah. You have to mention make food or at least must at least mention make food or photosynthesis. Either one, depending on how you phrase your answer. Okay? That is the main aim, right? Because they trap more sunlight for a certain reason. Okay? Um, Rusra, let me look at your. I'm looking at your question. Preferred writing style for the explanation learning. I'm not too sure what you're trying to ask me for Rusra. Question 11, this one, is it a PSLE question? It was a PSLE question, but it has been modified. Yes. Okay, some of you asked, will this come out in PSLE? This was a PSLE question and I is modified. Okay, yeah. So yes, this kind of question can come out. Okay, it can come out. So like I said, whatever you think you know. Okay, now for science is like this. What for science is like this. For whatever you think you know, just take it as is something to help you answer the question. But when you take the exam, a lot of times it will give you something strange, give you something unique, and you have to find hints in the questions. Don't assume, right? So just based on the hint, okay, the banana, they are green, they contain chlorophyll. That is the main hint, right? But do you actually know it beforehand? No, you do not know. Of course, until you have seen now. Okay? Will this question come up again in PSLE? Not likely because every student will have already seen this. But they could come up with something similar. Maybe there's another plant similar to banana that is also green initially, but becomes something else. Okay, so they can say that they contain chlorophyll also, which you think, right? Most of the fruits, they are green at first. Apple, right? Okay, so some of you know, right? Apple are green at first. Mangoes are also green at first. So they could ask something like that. But for this case, they ask banana growing upwards. So the answer is slightly different. Okay, the question is slightly different. Okay. Okay, I'm going to move on. Okay, now, so this banana, okay, ripening, banana ripening. Okay. So when banana or even you can even say apple, when they ripe, they produce this certain gas. You don't have to know what this gas is, but they say that this gas, okay, he wants to find out if he wants to investigate. This is the aim, to investigate if gas G helps unripe bananas to ripen more quickly. Okay. So what is the change variable? The change variable is gas G. This is the CV, the presence of gas G. But gas G comes from where? Gas G comes from a ripe banana. Okay? So you can say the ripe banana is the change variable. Okay? And what are we measuring? We are trying to measure, okay, how long they take to ripe. Okay? So the rate of ripening. So now we have the experimental setup, we have the control setup. What should I put in each of these? Okay? So of course, they say, right, gas G helps unripe bananas to ripen quickly. That means that each of these setup must have at least an unripe banana. Okay, so let me write that first. Each of these setup must have at least an unripe banana. One each. Okay, one each. One ripe banana. Sorry, one each of these setup must have an unripe banana. Okay, so I have written that down. But what else? So again, the control setup is not meant to test the variable. So the control setup must not have gas G. Okay? Does not test the variable. Okay, means there's no change variable for this. Then the experimental setup is the one with the change variable, which is gas G. And gas G comes from the ripe banana. So you should have a ripe banana here. Okay? All right. And can anyone get it? You all can hear me, right? Yeah, you all can hear me, right? Because there's this student say cannot hear. Maybe it's your connection of the speaker that you have, or you might have to rejoin again or restart your computer or something. Okay? Okay. What's happening? Hmm. Do the question contain facts like the banana? Yeah, yeah. Tai Sheng. When they say that the bananas are green, they contain chlorophyll, they are not going to lie. All this should be facts. Okay, they cannot write something that is fiction. Okay, it's not fiction. All right. Yeah, they cannot give you something that is not scientifically correct. So same thing like these bananas, they do produce a certain gas that helped other fruits to ripe faster. Okay. Oh, Rusra, now I'm looking at you. Okay, now I understand what I'm trying to say. Yes. So generally, okay, so you're correct. So when I write the WOW, okay, I said water, oxygen, and warm, right? So water and oxygen definitely. Now, warm depends on which type of plant it is. Okay, so just now I actually mentioned that warm, that's not where they are right there. I wrote somewhere I wrote suitable temperature. Okay, I can't remember where. No, did I not write that? Okay, but basically this warm can should be suitable temperature, okay? Because not all plants uh thrive in warm condition or warm climate, okay? So a more appropriate term is suitable temperature, but most plants grow well in warm, lah. Okay, some amount of warm. All right? Yes. So yes, your teacher is correct. Okay? Yes, this plant is the gas, sorry, this scenario is similar for apple. Similar for apple. Okay, you might have heard from your parents before. If your parents do not know, you tell your parents that bananas and apples when they ripe, they actually release this gas to help other fruits ripe faster. I'm kind of sure your parents would know lah. But you can let them know and see whether they know or not. Okay, and all this you can easily check online and they are true. Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. Since you are talking about apple and banana, can I write ripe apple here? Can I write ripe apple here? Shujing, yeah, correct. We need gas G. But where do we get the gas G? Gas G comes from the ripened banana. Okay, the ripe banana, not ripened banana. Okay, gas G comes from the ripe banana. So we don't just put the gas G. The gas G comes from the banana itself. These are the only things we have. Two ripe banana, two unripe banana. Nothing else. Okay? So yes, of course, no to my answer. There's no apple given. Even though you might think that, oh, apple also have the same effect, but the question says banana means banana. You do not go and change the variables yourself. Okay? So no apples in this question. Okay? And that was actually one of the PSLE question last year, if some of you have tried the questions. Okay, so what is gas G? You can Google that. Okay, what is gas G? It's a chemical, of course. Okay, I'm going to move on. Now, explain the purpose of the control setup in her experiment. All right, so we can follow this template. Okay, the purpose of the control setup. Since the already says the control setup, we don't need to say that, oh, it is a control setup or what. So we just state starting from here. Okay, so what are we confirming? What are we confirming? We have this setup, right? The control setup only got unripe banana. Experimental setup has unripe banana and a ripe banana. So, what is the purpose? Explain the purpose of the control setup. So we are using it, okay, to see. Okay, to confirm, not to see. Right, remember the phrasing for your template? To confirm that what? What is the difference between the two setup? The unripe banana ripening faster, right? That is the thing that you're measuring. Unripe banana ripening faster. Okay, to confirm that. All right. So to confirm that the unripe banana ripening faster. Okay, so I already started writing. I'm using a template to confirm that. Okay, then the unripe banana ripening faster. This is the change. This is the measured variable. Okay, because they want to find out if they are ripening faster, right? To confirm that the unripe banana ripening faster is only caused by the ripe banana. Okay, because that is the changed variable, the presence of the ripe banana. And to finish it up, and not other variables in the experiments. Okay. Hmm. Okay, some of you are saying that gas G by the instead of ripe banana, you say gas G. I think that's fine. Okay, that is fine. Gas G also can. Okay, because essentially the gas G comes from the ripe banana. Okay, so I'm just using the setup directly. The setup, the difference between the two setup is the presence of the ripe banana, which essentially produce gas G. Okay, so if your control setup you write here, okay, to confirm that the unripe banana ripening faster is only caused by gas G, I think that's okay. Okay, because that's also the one that is different between the two setup. Okay, this is ripening. Ripening. Thanks for highlighting that. Ripening. Okay, it's spelled as ripening, not riping. I'm not that good at English. But if you write writing, I don't think they will mark you wrong. Okay, it's understood. Although uh accurately is ripening. Okay? Yes. Can I use two ripe banana and I wanna yeah, your experimental setup you can use two ripe bananas also can, okay? You want to use one, you want to use two ripe bananas, it's okay. Can they use the same question but change the fruit? Is possible, Victoria? Is possible. Ripe banana and ripe banana on its own. Yeah. Unlikely, okay, depends on how badly it's spelled. Okay, so in terms of spelling for science, as long as the examiners can understand what you're trying to say, okay, and it is explaining correctly, the understanding is right, okay, they will not mark you down for spelling. They are also not likely to mark you down for grammar, unless that changes the meaning of your answer, then that will be wrong. Okay, like if you misspell something or your grammar, your sentence structure is different and it changed the whole meaning, then yes, of course, you'll be marked wrong. Okay? Okay, next. Now, suggest a reason why she used clear but not opaque containers, plastic container in her experiment. So of course, this is just comparing between clear and opaque. Okay, this is a pretty straightforward question, but also a practical question. Now we have the bananas, and they're going to put inside some jars, right, in order to trap the gas. Okay, or put inside a plastic bag, for example. Okay, so now they put in plastic containers. Why this plastic container should be clear and not opaque? So of course, it's for experimental reason. We want to observe the change. Okay, she wants to observe the change. She wants to observe how the bananas change during the experiment. Okay, so using a clear plastic container allows the observation to be recorded easily. Okay, or something close to that, or to be able to see the bananas or the experiment. Okay, so no light will be blocked. Yes, the sunlight is trapped by the bananas since they say that they are chlorophyll. Now you do not just explain the term opaque or clear. That is not the main point. Yes, you know what is opaque, you know what is clear, but how does that link to this question? So you must explain, right? So yes, opaque means that no light can pass through. Clear means that light can pass through. But for what purpose? Okay, so in order to make the observations. In this case, it's not about trapping the sunlight. Okay, in this case, it's not trapping the sunlight because this question is trapping the sunlight is part A. Subsequently, B and C is not about trapping sunlight. They can ripe without the presence of sunlight. Okay, it's more for the scientist here. Okay, to record her observations. All right. I'm one of the teacher for the boot camp. Okay, for the boot camp itself. What topic is this? This is a very general topic. You can say that is photosynthesis, but you can see part of the questions are all experimental techniques. Okay, like B and C, they are experimental based questions. Okay, all right. Let's move on. Hi, Hong Kai. Okay, and move on. All right. So we have actually finished up on the last one, control setup. Okay, so you can go through these questions again to revise on the experiment-based questions. So I'm moving on to answering techniques in various topics. Okay, the first one being heat. Okay, now why we choose this question, right? If you look at the content page here, why we choose heat, circulatory system, water, energy. Why do you think we choose these topics? Hmm. Okay, I'm seeing a few answers. PSLE topics. Of course, all these are PSLE topics, okay, required for your PSLE. Very common topics, okay, commonly tested, yes. Hard topics, some of it, yes. Okay, but remember what we are going through is answering techniques for this topic, which means that some of these topics, there's a certain way to answer the question. And that is what we're trying to help you. We're trying to help you provide you with some sentence structures or answer templates so that you can just choose. I mean, you can just follow the template and answer using similar phrasings. Just like all these templates that we have provided for experiment-based question. You follow all this, you should more or less get the mark, provided you have phrased correctly in terms of the variables. Okay? So we choose this topic. First thing is they have quite a high weightage in the PSLE, like for electrical systems. Okay, in some years, electrical system can go up to 10 marks. 10 out of 100 marks already. That's like 1/10 of the whole paper. Okay, so it's possible. All right, water itself, all these are either high weightage, commonly tested. They have a certain answering technique that we can teach you, right? And that is why we are going through them. Okay, so let's go through the topic, the part on heats. Yeah, these are some of the topics that definitely will be tested for PSLE. Right, remember for PSLE, okay, for PSLE, almost all the topics would be tested. Okay, so do not go and choose topics. Right, so all these heat, water, electricity, they are definitely tested. It's a matter of how much they test only. Okay, like that. Just now I said electricity they can test up to 10 marks, but who knows this year they come out only 5 marks. Right? I mean there's no guarantee, right? They can test little, they can test a lot. It changes every year. Okay. Now heat can be considered quite a tough topic, even though you all learn it in P4. But even some students at P6 fail to be able to answer them accurately. Okay, so let's go through them. Right. So I have three materials, P, Q, and R. Okay, all of them contain, okay, they have different materials, equal volumes of water. All right, and we are recording the temperature. Okay, so explain why it is important for the containers to have equal volume of water at the start. This is the constant variable. Okay, so what do you think this question is about? What do you think this question is about? Yes, fair test. Okay, this question is about fair test. When they talk about why they keep one of the variable constant, equal, the same, then it's about constant variable, which is linked to your fair test. Why are we keeping it the same? Okay, so you have to refer to the previous set on fair test. Okay, so how do we answer fair test? How do you answer fair test questions? Okay, remember your phrasing for fair test. You can say to ensure or it ensures, okay, because this question asks why it is important. So it ensures, right? Then the constant variable, it ensures that the volume of water at the start, okay, this is the phrasing that you all learn, right? It ensures or to ensures, then the constant variable does not affect what? The measured variable. Alright, so in this case, the measured variable, what are we measuring? Temperature. Or you can say temperature change to be more specific. Okay, does not affect the temperature change of the water. Okay, or you can say how quickly the temperature changes. So this is a fair test. I'm going to put it at the sides. Fair test. Okay? Yes, today's the last session. If you ask what kind of electrical system question with 10 marks are they? When I say 10 marks, it means it's across MCQ and structured question. So they could ask you like 2 marks in MCQ, that's already 4 marks, then 6 marks in structured. Or they can give you 3 MCQs, that's already 6 marks, and 4 marks in structured. Okay? So it could be in that way. Okay. Because electricity is quite a big topics. It's quite a big topic. They can test you a lot of things. Arrangement, brightness, connection, wrong connection, and yeah, they can test you a lot of things. If you just say, can you say is to ensure the experiments are fair? You no, you cannot just say is to ensure a fair test. That does not elaborate enough. Okay? Yes, you can say that it is to ensure a fair experiment or fair test, but how does that ensure the fair test? Okay, so you have to elaborate more than that. And you never learn heat in P4, so when do you learn heat? The class end at 9:30. Okay, if you write does not affect the temperature of the water, I think that is fine. That is fine. But more specifically is temperature change because if you say it does not affect the temperature of water, it's not so perfect. It's not so accurate because what we are measuring is how the temperature changes over time. Okay, up, move up. That's already. Unless you want me to go to the previous page. What is the main points that PSLE look out for? What do you mean by main points, Ziqian? What do you mean by main points? Wait a minute, why I have people giving me answers for question 13 already? Uh, Jela, why are you giving me question 13? We are still at question 12A. Okay, let me move on. Okay, state which, okay, this is the one with the important phrasing that all of you must take notes. Okay, how should you phrase such question? This is also related to the topic of material, which I think most of you have learned in P3 material, diversity of materials, right? What makes this material most suitable to make something? Explain your answer. Okay, so for such question where they say state explain, this is when you can use CER or you use AIR in MindStretcher or use whichever you are comfortable with. So you answer the question first. State which material. So what is the material that you want to choose and why? Okay. So you choose first PQ or R. Okay. Choose R. Xavier says R. So we choose R. All right. Now in exam, please do not go and write AIRCER. Don't write that in exam. That one is for practice. Okay. So in exam, just write your answers. You in your head, you know it's CR, AIR, whichever, but do not go and write it in exam. Okay. So you know it's material R. Now, what is my information? Why did I choose R? What did I know about R that I choose R? So you have to go back to your graph, your data. What happens to R? Okay, this is the hold on, ah. This is the graph for R. Alamak. This is the graph for R. Okay, very light. As compared to the rest. So how is it different from the rest that you have chosen it as the answer? Okay? So let's think about this, right? We want to make the inner lining of winter jacket. Now, when we wear jacket, what do we want to ensure? We wear the jacket to keep us warm. And to keep us warm, we should be using poor conductors of heat. Okay? So of course, you want to choose one where the temperature increase the slowest. Okay? The temperature of water increase the slowest, showing that it is the poorest conductor of heat. All right. Okay, I'm not going to type it. I'm going to just type it here, not write it. So the temperature of water increase the slowest, and then you say that so it must be Temperature of water increase the slowest, so R is the poorest conductor of heat. Okay, because it gains heat the slowest. That is the I. Alright. Then finally, your reasoning. How do you link them together? So what if it's the poorest conductor of heat? So you must link it back to your application, winter jackets. Alright. Your first mark comes from the information here. Okay, so you link it back to your winter jacket. So the one wearing the winter jacket lose heat the slowest to the colder surroundings and therefore can keep warm the longest. Okay, you must always link back to the application, which is the winter jacket here. All right, it's a winter jacket here, so you must always link it back. Yeah, some of the answers can be quite long, so please do a screenshot, snap the picture here, use your phone or whatever device you have to, take a screenshot of this. Okay, then you can copy it later. Or otherwise, if you still miss it, you can revisit the recording that will be on YouTube. Okay? CR. Okay, for those who have not learned CR, CR is what most of you learn in school, claim evidence reasoning. Claim is just the answer. Okay, evidence is information from the data or question. Then the reasoning is what's the explanation. Okay, same as AR. AR is answer, information, reasoning. Okay, they are the same. I is information. Okay, we're gonna take a break here. Okay, let's take a quick break here. Right, it's 8:27, almost 1 hour already. Right, so we'll come back. We will continue at 8:31. 3 minutes. Okay, it just turned 28, so 8:31. All right, so let's continue from 8:31. Tyler answer is very good, but a bit too long. See how you can make it more concise. Okay, try not to write extremely long in the PSLE because you take up a lot of time. Uh, Eileen, are you there? You lost a page. What do you mean? Do you need me to go up or something? Yeah, more session. 11D. Okay. PSLE get easier every year. Cannot be lah. Ling Fei. How can PSLE get easier every year? Then all the younger kids get to do the paper easier and easier. No, it's not easier every year. In fact, it should get harder every year. Okay, done, Okay, we'll wait for the rest to come back. 10, 10, yes, 10. Are you able to see? Diksha, I show you now first. Let me know when you're done for this page. Take a screenshot, yeah? Takes too long to copy down now. Yes, currently we are having a break. We'll continue at 8:31. One more minute. Diksha, are you done here? B. Is it through PSLE there is a redo? You don't redo PSLE unless you pay over the PSLE. There is no redo. Last year PSLE, what topic is it? All the topics are tested, Ian. Most of the topic came out. So yeah, most of the topic came out. Done already, Disha? Thank you. Yes, it's 8:31. Will one of the teacher for the boot camp? Yes, I'll be one of the teacher for the boot camp. Yes. Right. Basically, this whole year, if you join all the science webinars or events, you most likely will see me. Okay? No, like Tiffany, it's not gonna get harder every year. They will balance out. Okay? Sometimes some year might be harder, some year is easier. It's not gonna be harder and harder and harder. It's impossible. Likewise, it's not gonna be easier and easier. Otherwise, how to test the students? Okay? Okay, let's continue. It's 32 already. How common will fair test questions appear? Question. Um, I would say in every PSLE question, there is likely to be at least one fair test question. But fair test question are in different forms, right? Fair test question, they could just ask you which two setup to choose, or they ask you to write the sentence like this. Okay, why do you keep the constant variable that? Yeah. So I could say every year, I can't remember for now at this moment. Definitely, fair test question is very common and likely to come out every year. Okay? Yes, welcome back. Bootcamp will be in June. Bootcamp in June, the first week of June. I'm not teaching at Tampines, I teach at Clementi. Okay? All right. Let's move on. Question 13. Yeah, we're halfway through, right? Yes. Page 8 out of 14 already. Did the other lessons video come out in the YouTube? Yes, other lesson came out in YouTube already. Yes. Yep. Okay, let me continue. So this is the graph. This is the record of the heart rate when a man went for an exercise. Okay, so we need to describe the changes in the man's heart rate from 5:20 to 5:50 p.m. Okay, this sounds like a time some of you ran for your bus after school just now. Okay, so 5:20 to 5:50. Right, so let's look at that. 5:20. Okay, let me try to find a highlight for this. 5:20 is here. Okay, then until what? Until 5:50, right? Okay, 5:50. 5:50. Okay, so is this one trend or two trends? It has to be two trends, right? Okay, I have two colors here. First trend is horizontal, flat lines, flat line, right? From 5:20 to 5:30. So you have to state two relationship here. Okay, two range. So from 5:20 to 5:30, what happens? From 5:30 to 5:50, what happens? So you just describe accordingly Okay, so your answer should look like this. Okay, so the first one, it should be like this. I put it here first, I put it here first, just so that I can refer to this clearly. Okay, smaller, smaller. Okay, so 520 to 530, heart rate remains at 130. Now, you can see that this line is somewhere in between 120 to 140. So you have to make a good estimate, which is quite obvious, is around half. There's, of course, you don't need to go into specific, maybe it's 131, 132. No, it is approximately half. You can just keep it as 130, okay? All right. Then subsequently from 530, it should drop from 130 to this is around 70. Okay, so state it clearly. All right. Now I'm going to bring this back down here. Oh, I can't put it there. Okay, and it's the same. Okay, so this is the first range. Then the second range is this. From 530 to 550, decrease, heart rate decrease from 130 to 70 beats per minute. Okay, why are you talking about heart rate? What do you mean go? The question is about heart rate, what? Okay, very important, right? This question is all about describing, okay? You do not go and explain in part A. Part B is the part where you explain. Explain for this time duration, okay? 510 to 520. Yes, you should include the bits. Okay, I tell you, as long as you have values in your graph, in your table, just write them down. Okay? Just write them down. You have values. All right. Okay, one of you say you're weak in here, so that's why we put it here, because I know some of you do not know how to phrase your answer, especially for part B. Okay, I assume you're talking about part B, Victoria. Okay, many of you got this question wrong. Okay, remember you all just did for your P6 media checkpoint. My class as well. Many students cannot write this answer properly for B. Okay, they're always testing you the same thing. You have to phrase it correctly. Okay, so you have to practice writing it 100 times before you go for PSLE. Okay, can you write short form? What do you mean by short form? Okay, don't use short form, but you can write units. You can write units. So if you do not want to write, let's say for example, units, write beats per minute. You do not want to write beats per minute, you can write BPM. That is acceptable unit. Okay, but not other kind of short forms. Okay, right. So how do you phrase the answer for B? Okay, B is the standard explanation for why heart rate increases or heart rate decreases. So 510 to 520, let's look at the graph first. And of course, this is for increase. Okay, heart rate has increased. Why? Why does the heart pump faster? Okay, so let's explain that. So that must be when he started exercising, right? Okay, so when he exercises, then the heart must pump faster. All right. So what you can write here is as he exercises. Okay, this is just to say that he's exercising during this period. Okay, as he exercises, his heart pumps blood faster. Now, very common mistake here is that students will write his heart pumps more blood. Now, technically, the heart does not pump more blood. How can the heart pump more? The heart is only so big. It cannot pump more blood. It just pump faster. So you don't pump, your heart rate increases, right? So it's pumping faster and faster. It's not going to pump more blood each time. Okay, so it pumps blood faster, and that helps to transport. Now, what are we transporting here? What are we transporting here? Now, the main thing to talk about here is what is needed for. Okay, actually, there are a few things to link here, right? So maybe before I continue, let me try to explain first, right? So heart rate increases, yes, definitely this shows that he is exercising. But what do you need for exercise? What is needed for exercise is energy. Energy comes from where? Energy comes from respiration. Okay? I'm just writing the keywords below, key phrases below. So I need more energy, I need respiration, I need the things required for respiration. So oxygen, digested food. So all this should be in your answers. Okay? So now the heart pumps blood faster to transport what? More. You should be using comparative terms, right? More oxygen and digested food to all parts of his body. But what is the purpose of this? Okay, so we have already mentioned oxygen, digested food. Okay, then this is to release more energy through respiration. Now I have all the keywords and phrases. Okay, all right. Yes, P5 does not talk about heart rate. What do you mean? In P5, you will learn circulatory system. You might not have learned about circulatory system yet. Soon, you are likely to learn that soon, if you have not. Minute, you can write MIN. That is the unit for minute. Okay? No, you don't use CER for all explain question. Okay? Only some of the question when you ask to explain, you might not have the C. You have the E and R. You have evidence from the question, you have the reasoning, but you may not have the C because C is just a short answer to answer the question. Okay? If you are supposed to explain but you describe, will you get the question wrong? Yes, you will get the question wrong, kids. Okay, carbon dioxide, yes. So some of you are talking about the carbon dioxide. So I would say for carbon dioxide is an additional point, but in actual fact, this is sufficient for PSLE. Okay? So yes, so some of our answers, some of your school's answer, they also include the carbon dioxide, which means that to also remove the carbon dioxide and waste materials faster from the body. Okay, because essentially, right, biologically, when our heart pumps blood, it's transporting all these oxygen, digested food, as well as the waste materials around the body faster. So we're taking oxygen faster, we also give out carbon dioxide faster. It's all a cycle. Okay, so the full story is including the carbon dioxide. Okay, so okay, let me add in the full story since some of you are asking. All right, so the last part is just uh this part. I think more carbon dioxide, no, no, is also removed from the body. Okay, more carbon dioxide and waste materials lah. Then carbon dioxide is fine. Okay, so we transport more oxygen and digested food for more energy through respiration. At the same time, more carbon dioxide is also removed. Okay, that's the full one. But again, I said for carbon dioxide, it's not it's not really needed for the PSLE. The main thing is the energy uh for the exercise. Okay. But I know some schools will emphasize to adding the carbon dioxide. Okay. Yeah. So if your school teacher say must add the carbon dioxide, do add it. Yeah. So I also put it here. So you want to make sure that you get a full marks for PSLE. Okay, please add in the carbon dioxide. Now you must mention respiration. Yeah. Because that is the process to release the energy for your exercise. All right. Do we need to write a conclusion? Not for this question. We are not writing conclusion here. There's nothing on conclusion. Okay. Release energy. What other phrases can I use to replace release energy? What other phrases can you use? Produce energy. The better term is release energy because energy is not really produced technically because energy is a conversion of energy, right? So it's not really produced, but they release the energy for our body for us to use. Okay, ends at 9:30, yeah? Okay, so anyone still copying? I think we'll be moving on to the next topic. Okay, so remember for this question, follow these templates, some of these key terms. Okay, remember I just want to mention as I type my answer, pump blood faster, not pump more blood. Okay? It pumps faster. But when they pump faster, they transport more oxygen and digested food. Okay, so or you can say everything is faster, that's okay. All right, let me move on. Yes, correct. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. So conversion, right? So that's why we need to eat food. Now, very important, right? I have my students in P6 class, and they do not know what's required for respiration. They will say, "Oh, is water needed for respiration?" So be very clear. Respiration does not need water. Water is produced during respiration. Okay, what is needed for respiration is oxygen and digested food only. Okay? Water is produced during respiration. That's why our exhaled air has more water vapor than the inhaled air. Okay? So remember, respiration and photosynthesis are opposites. Okay? Photosynthesis needs water and carbon dioxide. But water and carbon dioxide are produced during respiration. Okay? They are the opposite of each other. Okay, let's move on. Okay, now. All right, water and changes of state. Now, very common topic tested for the PSLE. Okay, may not be this exact same question, but some of the main things are essentially the same. Okay, the concepts are the same. Right. Explain how water was collected in the devices. Okay, let's try to understand what's happening here. So we have these devices, X and Y. They are placed over wet grass on a hot day. Some hours later, okay, water was collected in the containers. Okay, here are the water that are collected here. Okay, so I explained how water was collected in the devices. Now they are all placed on the wet grass. Water comes from somewhere. Where did this water come from? Okay, so this is the whole water evaporation, water condensation. You must have the evaporation first. before the condensation. Okay? So these answers have two parts. Okay, you have two parts. So we have the wet grass. Wet grass is wet. That's water. So water from the wet grass must have gained heat from the hot surrounding air. It's hot day, right? Okay, gain heat from the hot surroundings and evaporated to form water vapor. Okay, that is the first part of your answer. Okay, so you must talk about where the water vapor come from. Okay, do not just start on the condensation part. Many of you have already remember how to write your condensation, but you fail to identify where the water vapor come from, especially in some of these special setups. Okay, so this water vapor must come from the wet grass. I know there are some water vapor in the air, but in this case, because they mentioned that no, the grass is wet, it's a hot day, okay, there will be a build up of water vapor from the wet grass. Okay, so mention that. Do you learn question 14 in P5? Yes. When you learn water, evaporation, and condensation, you should have, you will see some of these questions. Yes. These are application questions. Maybe at P5, you have just started learning them. Okay. All this application will come a bit later. Okay, so I move on to the condensation. Right. So now I have stated out where the water vapor come from. So then here comes the WCLC. WCLC. Okay, this is for condensation. So again, what are these WCLC? Later people will ask me again. All right. So the water vapor or the warmer water vapor, what does it do? Came into contact with the cooler. What is this thing? Cooler inner surface of the container. Okay, cooler inner surface, not container, of the device. Okay, lost heat and condense to form water droplets. Okay, so this is the water vapor, WCLC. Yeah, not container, the device. The container is the one below. Okay, you can say that's device will do lah. Okay, that's the device. So WCLC, first W, water vapor, or you can say is the warmer. Okay, why we put warmer here? Okay, either you don't put a warmer also can because essentially you say it's cooler. Okay, but just to be sure, we put a warmer. Okay, but the first W essentially is for water vapor. Came into contact with the cooler inner surface of the device, lost heat, and condensed to form water droplets. Now, am I done? Do we need to conclude this? No, there's no conclusion here, Gabriel. We are not concluding anything. We are just trying to explain how the water droplets form. There's no need for any conclusion. We are not done, right? Yeah, because the question asks for water collected in the devices. But my answer just stopped at, oh, they form water droplets. So you have not talked about the collection of the water. All right? So you must complete the story. You must complete the story. So they condense to form water droplets. Okay, let me see. Which float into the containers below. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, this is the second mark. Sorry for that. Okay, here. So you must complete it because the question asks for water collected in the devices. So you have to tell me that the water droplets will then flow into the containers or drip into the containers. Can you underline your keywords in your answer so the examiners, the markers can see better? Actually, no need. No need. Don't do that. You will spend more time trying to identify your keywords. Just write your answers will do. Okay? Instead of inner cooler surface area, can we put cooler surface area? Um, it is better to include the inner, right? I see your answer is the difference is the inner. So it's the inside of the device, right? So just add it in, just add the inner. Yeah. So it depends on the setup. Sometimes you need to say it's a cooler underside of the plate, cooler inner surface of the device, etc. Okay, so all these you have to mention. Okay, I'll move on. When do you see When do you use CR? When you have some data or values, okay? Then you have some graph, some table, some data. Then that's when you need the evidence. That's the E. Okay? Other than that, usually you don't need the CR. Like this question explained, right? But you're not using CR here. Okay? Because there's no evidence. Not in this part, not in this question. All right? Now, state which device would collect more water after 5 hours. Explain your answer. Why X? X, there's a larger entrance. Now, that's not how you phrase it. What is larger entrance? What's the correct scientific term? Exposed surface area, correct. Okay. Now, very common mistake is some students might choose Y, or because you are confused, you think that, oh, looks like a bigger container, so they collect more water. But essentially, it's not how it works. What we want is the water to evaporate faster. Okay. So evaporate faster. This one evaporate slower because of a larger exposed surface area in X. Okay, so now for this question, then we can use for B we can use CR or AIR. Okay, so our evidence here is not in the form of the table or graph, but from our diagram, right? We can compare the exposed surface area. Okay, so here answer directly. State which device. So device X. Okay. Then what is the information you have? So how do you know? Why do you choose X? Because comparing the two, X has a greater exposed surface area. Okay. Then you link this information to why your answer is device X. All right. So this is for reasoning R. Right, with larger surface area means what? Water evaporate faster, right? Okay, water in X evaporated faster, forming more water vapor. which subsequently condense to form more water droplets. Okay? Okay, to make this nicer, very ugly. Now, Fraser, so, okay, never mind. You said never mind already. Is this a 2014 PSLE? This was a PSLE question. I do not know which year. Okay, but a lot of these questions you see in your school test paper, exam paper, practice paper, even assessment books, a lot of them are modified PSLE questions. So don't be surprised you will see some of these coming out again. But again, essentially, we are testing the same concept because the concepts can't change. Right? The scientific concepts are all the same. You could change the device, you could change the setup, but testing the same thing, okay? That's why the PSLE, for the PSLE, if you have practiced enough, you get yourself exposed sufficiently, okay, there should not be surprises for the PSLE. Cadence is control setup to compare. You can say to compare and confirm. Okay, compare and confirm. We can write to confirm is sufficient. All right. But since there is more grass at one place, doesn't it trap more water? Huh? I don't understand your question, Cat. Okay, it's 9:03. All right. Are you all done? Now, before we move on to the next question, right? I just want to emphasize that for all this condensation, you must understand what is the cooler surface. Now remember, cooler surface doesn't have to be a solid surface. In this case, it's a solid surface, the cooler inner surface of the devices. That's a solid surface. But my question to you is, can the cooler surface not be a solid? Can the cooler surface not be a solid? Give me an example. Surroundings, very good. Surrounding air. Yes, surrounding air, not space. Then space is just empty. Okay? We must say air, surrounding air. Correct. Okay, so remember, when you talk about cooler surface, a cooler surface is just any type of surface. It could be a solid, it could be the surrounding air, which is cooler. Okay, like what one of you mentioned, steam coming out of the kettle, right? So it comes in contact with the cooler surrounding air and then condense, lost heat and condense to form the water droplets, which is what we observe as the mist. Okay? So remember what we can see is not what is not the steam, what we see is the water droplets, tiny water droplets, okay? Alright, so let's talk about the next question. Yep. Alright, I think a lot of you understand what I'm saying, yeah? Good. Right, so what we have here, what means observe here. So when you see such question, right, and you try to write your answer for condensation, before you even write, maybe you try to identify what is the warmer surface, what is the cooler surface. Okay, so of course this is a truck that transport ice. If you imagine this as the freezer in your house, your refrigerator, your freezer, okay, just think as a freezer where there's ice, then the warmer surface must be the air, the surrounding air. Surrounding air is warmer. So when we write our condensation answer, it must be this warmer surrounding air that loses heat and condense. Not the surrounding air, right? The warmer water vapor in the surroundings. Okay? So, okay. Maybe I just write this water vapor. Okay, let me change this instead of the surrounding air, let me change it to water vapor in the surroundings. That is warmer, okay? So that is more targeted to the concept of water. Alright? So this water vapor in the surrounding in the surroundings or the surrounding air is warmer. Then it will lose heat and condense. Okay, so be very clear on this. Alright? Right, so in this question now, I don't need to have evaporation. There's no evaporation here since there's no other puddle of water or wet grass or wet soil. So here is simply water. You can just start off your condensation already. Right? So this is slightly easier. You start off from your warmer or warm water vapor from the surroundings or surrounding air. All right, that's your first W. Came into contact with the cooler. Now, what's the cooler surface here? Came into contact with the cooler. So this is the truck, right? It's just like you open up your freezer. Okay, so this is the cooler air exiting the truck. Okay, the mist is outside the truck, right? So the air is coming out. So they came in contact with the cooler air coming out of the truck. Then they lost heat. That's the same thing already. Lost heat and condensed to form water droplets. Okay, let's say tiny water droplets. Okay, tiny water droplets which appear as the white mist. Okay. So in this case, your first mark could be from telling me is the cooler air and the warmer water vapor in the surroundings. You then lost heat and condensed the second mark. So this is slightly easier to get the mark because we don't have the evaporation to write. Okay. Mist is liquid, correct. Condensation, yes. Okay. Is this a popular question? Now, like I said, right, condensation is a popular type of question. Be it this kind of ice trap, they have already tested a lot of different kinds of questions on condensation. Every year, all the school paper, all the test paper, all the PSLE paper, all have different kinds of questions testing on condensation. So if you have tried almost every one of them, right, you will know all the different scenarios. Okay, and some of you say, oh, this one familiar, that one familiar. That's because, I mean, condensation is only that much they can test. The concept is very similar. It's always the same concept. It's just what is the application, what's the concept, what's the scenario. I did this question in school and wrote in simpler and my teacher still marked me correct. Is it accepted for PSLE? Uh, Tiffany, if I understand you means that you well, for your school test or practice, you wrote slightly with less keywords maybe, and your teacher still mark you correct. Okay, try to write some of these keywords. Okay, make sure you have the main point. Okay, the W, C, cooler surface, LC. Okay, and then complete the story with the water droplets appearing as the white mist. Complete the story. Like just now, this one also complete the story, right? Okay, float into the container. So all these must be in as well. Okay, so try to write as complete as possible. Answer fully with all the necessary keywords and phrases. Okay, yeah. Yes, water vapor is gaseous state. Correct. Should it be warmer visible from the surroundings? Yeah. ST, I don't know what's your name. Warmer water vapor from the surrounding air, from the surroundings, no difference. No difference. Kaden, are you P6 or P5? Or others? P6, okay, very important thing. If you are already at P6, you have to know the difference between water vapor, steam, and mist. Okay? I'm going to say this, I'm going to emphasize on this. Mist, okay, water vapor, uh, water vapor or steam, these are gaseous, means they are gases, okay, and they are invisible. We can't see them. While mist refers to water droplets. It is in the liquid state. Okay, it is visible. I hope that is clear. Okay, for P5 students or P6 students, no matter what, okay, you have to know this, the difference between water vapor, steam, mist, cloud. Okay, so water vapor and steam, they are in the gaseous state. Steam is just hot water vapor. All right, and all this water in the gaseous state, they are invisible. You can't see steam, you can't see water vapor. What you see are the cloud, the mist, which are water droplets. And water droplets are in the liquid state and you can see them. Okay, so as long as you can see something, that is the liquid state. Okay, for water. Please write this down. Okay, so I just add in cloud, mist. Okay, sometimes they use fog, F-O-G. Same thing, okay? Fog, cloud, mist, they're all the same. Please don't get this wrong, Yes, mist is water. Mist is water, droplet, water. Liquid state. Okay, thanks, Kaden. Okay, but in case for anyone who still doesn't know this, okay, this is a very, very, very important concept, okay? Now, haze is different. Haze contains other particles. Haze contains smoke particles, dust particles, okay? So, haze is a completely different story. Okay, without the warmer, I think warmer not necessary because we have the cooler part, so that already shows the comparison in the temperature. Okay, but we put the warmer just in case. So warmer water vapor, then the cooler air. Okay, but I think without the word warmer is fine, ST. Okay, I'm gonna move on, otherwise we cannot finish. Isn't mist gas? No, Victoria mist is liquid, not a gas. Okay, one last time for Skylar. Mist and steam, they are gases. Okay? And as long as they are gases, you can't see them. They are invisible. Okay? So you see, when you boil water using the kettle at home, what you see is not the steam. Although there's steam being produced, but the steam have already condensed to form water droplets, and that is what you are seeing as the mist. Okay? I said mist is gas. No, no, mist is liquid. Mist is liquid. Steam cannot be seen, Stephanie. Steam cannot be seen. All right? Okay, I'm moving on. Okay, explain why the white mist disappeared after a short time. So all these white mist, no matter what, they will disappear very quickly, right? Because eventually again, the white mist are in the liquid state. These are water droplets. And they are very fine, tiny water droplets. So eventually they will gain heat and evaporate, okay, to form water vapor again. So you have to write a complete sentence. So they gain heat from the warmer surrounding air and evaporated to form water vapor. Okay, write it the full way, the full complete answer. Okay. Now I have to move on a little bit faster already. Yes. So I need you guys to take a photo, take a screenshot, or you can watch the recording, right? So as long as you understand, okay, I'm trying my best to try to explain all these very important concepts to all of you here. Okay. Now next, explain how the plastic strips help to keep the ice inside the truck from melting. Right? So if I go back to the diagram here, we have all these strips, all right, all these plastic strips. They are there to, slow down the heat transfer, right? Because there are ice inside the truck, and we want to make sure the ice don't melt. Okay, so they are plastic for a reason. Okay, they are plastic for a reason, right? We choose plastic because it's a poor conductor of heat, which helps to slow down the heat gain of the ice from the warmer surrounding air. Okay? So you must talk about the plastic. You must talk about the plastic. Otherwise, they could use some others that are good conductor as well. Okay? Of course, they want to use something that's poor conductor. Okay? And help to slow down the heat transfer, the heat gain of the ice. All right. Now, can you take a photo for this? Take a photo for this or screenshot, and I need to move on. Okay, I still got electrical system, electricity, and I also need to explain quite a bit. Okay, can I move on already? I give you another 10 seconds. Okay, I'm going to move on. Now, question 16. Let's analyze this setup carefully. Now, we have two circuits and they are side by side. Okay, they are side by side. So what we have here, circuit 1, and they say that, okay, he closed S1. S1 is the switch here. So once S1 is closed, circuit 1 becomes a closed circuit with the bulb and the iron lever, which is a good conductor of electricity. Okay, so it's going to be a closed circuit, and the first thing that will be observed is that the bulb will light up. I think this one is pretty straightforward. Okay, As long as you can tell it is a closed circuit, the bulb would light up. Okay, and this one should not be a problem. Now, then comes the next part. Describe the changes if he closed S2 after S1. Explain your answer. So for S2, okay, so now we know S1 is the closed circuit, the bulb is lit up. But S2 is closed after that. What is in S2? We have an iron bar, we have a bell. Now, if it's a closed circuit, the bell will sound. That is something that will happen. What else will happen? So you look carefully at these parts here. Okay, this is an iron bar, but we have the coil of wires around that. So what does it become? It becomes an electromagnet. So what will happen next? If it's an electromagnet, this iron lever in circuit 1 will be attracted. And what happens to circuit 1? Circuit 1 becomes open and the bulb will not light up. Or rather, the bulb will turn off. Okay? So you have to describe all that. Okay? Given these 4 lines. Alright? So I repeat again, when S2 is closed, now the bell will sound and circuit 2 remains a closed circuit. Iron bar becomes an electromagnet. Okay, so let's write that down first. Okay. But they ask for what? Describe the changes. Okay, so I've already told you that the bulb will turn off. Okay, so these are the changes. I answer the question first. Okay, the bell rang, and the bulb turned off. Okay, so this is the first part. Describe the changes. But let's explain how this happened, right? So explain your answer. Explain your answer. So why did the bulb turn off? Now then I must talk about the electromagnet. So that's the second part. Let's explain. Okay, I've already explained, right? Iron bar in circuit 2 became an electromagnet which attracted the iron lever in circuit 1. That makes circuit 1 an open circuit. Okay? Yeah, Amelia, you may go off first. If you miss any parts, you can watch the recording for the last part. Yeah. This is page 12. Page 12. Okay, like I said, take a screenshot and we have to move on. Okay? Take a screenshot. We are left with one last question, but last question has 4 parts to it. We can finish. We can finish. I'm sure we can finish. Okay? Okay, I'll give you another 10 seconds and I will move on. See the picture? Okay. Picture. No graph. There's no graph. Okay, this is the full page. Okay, so you see, right, this is the question for electricity, and a lot of questions in PSLE come out like this. You're supposed to write step by step what happens. Okay, so like for example here, right, circuit 2 is closed, so what's the next thing that happened? Okay, the iron bar becomes electromagnet, then what's next? Attracted the iron lever, then what's next? Some of electricity questions are like this. You just analyze the setup, explain or describe accordingly, okay? Okay, I will move on. Yes, Chloe, 6 minutes more. Let's finish this in 6 minutes, yeah? Okay, now, so we have this setup. So let's identify them. Let's analyze this setup. So we have this circuit. And this is an iron bar with wires quite around it, so it's going to become an electromagnet as well. And it is likely to attract this iron rod. Now, they say that iron rod can swing around X. So that means that if it is attracted, this part here will be attracted. Okay, it's going to swing around X and it will hit the bell. Okay, it starts at swinging, right? So you will swing and hit the bell. So explain how the ding sound is produced. And I have explained that, okay? So you have to give me the full picture. You close the switch, okay? When the switch is closed, electric current flows through the circuit and iron bar becomes an electromagnet. Okay, that should be the first part. Okay, but this question is only 1 mark. Okay, so do not write too long. Okay, my answer is maybe too long. You have to say that it becomes an electromagnet attracting the iron rod. Okay, so let's continue. It attracts the bottom part of the iron rod, causing it to swing and hit the bell. Okay, let me see how I can rephrase this. Electric current flows through the closed circuit. The iron bar becomes an electromagnet and attracts the bottom of the iron rod. Okay, this one, which? Okay, this one I don't need to complete. Hit the bell can already. We'll stop. Okay, shorter. Okay. So again, it's about analyzing the setup. You must be able to understand what happens, okay, and how the ding sound is produced. All right. Now I'm gonna move on. Later, you just take a screenshot all together, then copy later. Now, suggest 2 ways how a louder ding sound can be produced. Okay, so we already know how a ding sound is produced. How do we make it even louder? Now, in order to produce a louder sound, it must hit the bell with a larger force. How do we do that? How do we make it hit the bell with a larger force? The one way to do it is to make the electromagnet stronger. Okay, how do we make it stronger? We have a few ways to make a stronger electromagnet, right? Make more coils around the iron bar or use more batteries. Okay, so do that. Answer here. Okay, increase the number of turns of coils of wire, increase the number of coils. These are the 2 ways to make the electromagnet stronger. Okay, and therefore will attract the iron rod with a greater force. So you will hit it with a larger force. Okay? Yes, hits the bell. Thanks for the correcting the grammar here. Okay, now I will move on. Now, what is the purpose of the spring in the setup? What's the purpose of the spring in the setup? Now, this iron rod can swing around X, right? So when I close the switch, the iron rod will be attracted. But when the switch is open, like I say, when the switch is open, the iron rod hit the fixed block and produce a dong sound. Dong. Okay? So what is the spring for? Right, when I open the switch, it's no longer electromagnet. So the spring is there to, pull back the iron rod. Okay? The spring is there to pull the bottom of the iron rod away from the iron bar, from the electromagnet, so that it can produce the dong sound. Okay, if the spring is not there, then it will not hit the thing on top, okay, the fixed block. Yeah, batteries in series. Yeah, but parallel batteries are not in your syllabus. So just say add batteries will do. It's assumed to be series because you don't learn parallel arrangement for battery. Yeah, actually, one of you. Okay, never mind. Later. All right, I move on to the last one. Yeah. So D, right? Some of you are saying yes, stiffer spring to produce a larger dong sound. Correct. Okay. But let's explain the answer. So this is a stiffer spring, right? So we use a stiffer spring, but why? So they are going to be attracted and pulled to the same amount. But when you use a stiffer spring and stretch to the same length, okay, then it will exert a greater elastic spring force. Therefore, have a greater impact. Okay. So a stiffer spring, okay, this answer is a bit longer, so bear with me here. So the stiffer spring will exert a greater elastic spring force to pull the bottom of the iron rod towards it. Okay, so if there's a greater force at the bottom, there will also be a greater force at the top when it hits the block. Okay, so it hits the feeds block with a greater force. You must mention the force in your answer. Okay? Yeah, so you can screenshot this, right? Now, cats, they will be attracted to the same amount, even though it's a less force, right? But essentially, it must still produce the ding sound, right? Okay, so the amount it stretched is the same to produce the ding sound before it is released to produce the dong sound. Okay, so they are the same at the start. Okay, question 15 and 16. Okay, later, Diksha, later, in a while. Okay, so that's all for this 3-session workshop. So I just want to thank all parents and students for joining us for 3 Thursday evening. All right. So subsequently, we will have the Power Up Bootcamp, be it online or physically. You might see me there as well. Okay. So I hope to see all of you for the bootcamp. All right. And June is really the period to, work on all your science, your mathematics and all. Okay, make sure you are well prepared for the PSLE. Okay, so do your best. All right, now it's still early. Start your revision if you have not. Okay, now is a good time. Okay, now is a good time to really start your revision. And some of you having your next weighted assessment soon, right? Okay, so please start revising, practice on all the things that we have taught you. Okay, and June is a booster. Okay, so I hope to see all of you in June. So thanks again for joining us these 3 weeks. All right, and if you have no further questions, you may go off already. For some of you, you have questions, you can stay behind. Thanks again. Thanks, Claire. Thank you very much. Very nice message. 加油，加油. Thank you. Yeah, Diksha, are you still around? Let me see your question. Okay, where is it? Okay, where is it? I think it's Q&A. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. 15 and 16, right? Isha, you're still around, I hope. Sorry, a lot of messages coming in. Uh, Yes, okay, 15 and 16. Let me go up there. 15 and 16. Which part, Shah? Everything? Let me zoom out. Okay, I can't show everything. Can you see everything? Is it too small? I'll be at all the location for the boot camp. Okay, so you'll see me there. Okay, questions. Okay, I'll go through one question by one question now. Hold on. A lot of messages, so I just need to sort it out. Disha, you're done with this? 16? Okay, 16. Yeah, 16. You use stiffer spring for B. B, you use stiffer spring. No, no, no. You cannot use stiffer spring. If you use stiffer spring, your dim sum will be softer because it's harder for the electromagnet to attract. So cannot. Okay, thank you. 17B, is it 17B? Hold on, 17B. Yeah, 17B is this one, the ding sound. Okay, remember people, if there are anything that you miss out, you can always revisit the recording online and YouTube only. Okay, very easy to find. Can you confirm your cloud is from water droplet? Cloud is made of water droplets. Yes, Victoria, you're correct. Okay, 15C, 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 this one? 15C, okay. Any other questions? Any other one? Any more? Is the bootcamp suitable for P5? It is suitable for P5 actually. It is. Yeah. Okay, 16, 16 again. Uh, 16. Yes, 16 here. If the mist will evaporate, why does cloud not evaporate? Mist is water droplet, right? So they will evaporate. Yes, because at the cloud level in the sky, it's very cold. Okay, but we're talking about mist on land, like at ground level. So the temperature and the pressure are not the same. Okay? Hui. If the spring is stiffer, will the block go a further distance or not? Further distance where? Thank you, Akilan, sorry. Thank you.